Hola de nuevo, muy buenas, soy Abigail de Rose English. Hoy estaremos mirando a Fluency Accelerator 6 y estaremos mirando un grammar point, phrasal verbs, expresiones que usamos en inglés y pronunciación de la palabra. So, empezamos. Okay, so the grammar point that we are looking at today is short statements. And so is used for agreement with positive statements. So let's have a look at a few examples of how we would use short sentences, sorry. So if someone was to say to you, I'm tired, and you could say, me too, but you could also say, so am I. Yeah, so am I. Yeah. Or I live in Seville. Oh, so do I. Yeah. I went to Hampshire last month. Did you? So did I. Yeah, yo también. I have a backache. Oh, so have I. She is 22 years old. Really? So is he. She studies in London. Oh, really? So does he. Okay, so these are just a few examples of how we would use short sentences. So let's learn about how we can use them and how we form them. So the first thing to look at is the auxiliary verb that is used to describe, that is used in the sentence. So the phrase is, I am tired. So the short sentence would be am. Why? Because we are duplicating or copying the auxiliary verb used in the sentence. So, for example, I live in Seville. Why on earth are we using do then? If I'm using live and there's no auxiliary here, how do I know that I have to use do? Well, we know that we have to use do because when I ask you the question, do you live in Seville? I'm using do as an auxiliary verb to form that question. Okay, so where do you live? The question would be, and I would say, I live in Seville, right? So that's how we know to use do in this short sentence, right? So where do you live? I live in Seville. Oh, really? So do I. The next one, or the next example is, I went to Hampshire last month. Why again are we using did? Because I probably asked the lady or the person was probably asked, where did you go last month? And where did you go is the auxiliary verb used to form the question. So that's why I'm using as my short sentence, so did I. Okay. Now, again, with the next one, I have a backache. I'm using the auxiliary verb have, or it is the verb have, but have is also an auxiliary. So in this case, that's why I'm using so have I. Okay, so whatever the question is, that's the short sentence. Use the verb or the auxiliary verb in the short sentence to match that. Yeah, so to coordinate that together. I hope this is making sense. So I know it's a little bit tricky. Okay, the next one. She is 22. So I probably would have asked, how old is she? She's 22. Oh, so is he. Yeah, so we're matching the auxiliary verb. She studies in London. Or I could say, where does she study? She studies in London. So does he. Okay, so let's practice. I hope this has been clear, but let's practice and see if we have understood. So if I were to say, goodness me, I'm thirsty, what would your short sentence be to say yo también in a short sentence? What would you use to say yo también? And the correct answer is so am I. Muy bien. Okay, let's go on to the next one. I lived in London for 6 months. What do you think the sentence would be? The answer is, so did I. Oh, you lived in London, so did I. Next one. I went to the cinema on Friday. So think of the question that you would ask here. It'd probably be, where did you go on Friday? Where did you go on the Friday? I went to the cinema on Friday. So did I. Yeah. Next one. I'm 26 years old. Short sentence would be, so am I. Good. Next one. He played for Chelsea, the football club. He played for Chelsea. So did I. So who did he play for? He played for Chelsea. So did I. Okay, so I hope that is clear. If it's not, just give me a comment and I will try and explain it further. But now we are going to move on to our phrasal verbs. So let's start. So the first phrasal verb we have is to get along. And to get along means to have a harmonious or friendly relationship. So the equivalente sería llevarse bien con alguien. So we've only known each other for a short time, but we get along so well. Yeah, we've only known each other for a short time, but we get along so well. Next one, to get over, and this is superar algo, yeah, to overcome a difficult event or a challenge of some sort. I think a holiday would be good. It will help her get over the breakup. So I think a holiday would be good. It will help her get over the breakup. All right, and the next one we have is to get out of, and that's escaparse. So to escape something or to avoid doing something. So Martin called in sick to get out of sitting in a 2-hour meeting. Es decir, que Martin llamó al trabajo y dijo, lo siento, pero estoy enfermo. ¿Para qué? Para escapar la reunión de 2 horas. Yeah? So Martin called in sick. So to call in sick is llamar y decir al trabajo que estoy enfermo, no puedo enferma, no puedo venir o yeah, no llego. So Martin called in sick to get out of sitting in a 2-hour meeting. Okay, and those were our expressions. Phrasal verbs. So now let's go on to our expressions, and we're going to look at 3 expressions. So let's start. The first one is under the thumb. And if somebody is under the thumb, it means that son bajo el control o influencia de alguien o algo. Yeah, well, normalmente alguien. So to be under the thumb. So if we were to look at some sentences, a few examples may be, my sister has always been under my mother's thumb. He has his team firmly under his thumb. She has him under the thumb. He never goes out with his friends anymore. Okay, so those are a few examples of how we use under the thumb, bajo de control de alguien. All right, next one, to twiddle one's thumb. And to twiddle one's thumb is cruzarse los brazos, es decir, no hacer nada. So sentences may sound like this. You can't just sit there twiddling your thumbs. You need to take action. Call them. Okay. You can't just sit there twiddling your thumbs. You need to take action. Call them. He expects a miracle, but does nothing. He is literally twiddling his thumbs, expecting a job to come to him. He expects a miracle, but does nothing. He is literally twiddling his thumbs, expecting a good job to come to him. Vale? So those are a few sentences of what of how we would use to twiddle one's thumbs. Cruzarse los brazos. Yeah, no hacer nada. Okay, and the next one we have is to stick out like a sore thumb. I think we saw this one briefly in the last video, and it basically means, but because we're using expressions with thumb, I thought I would use it again just to remind you of this wonderful expression. So to stick out like a sore thumb is to llamar la atención. And I'm using the same sentences. They would stick out like a sore thumb if they went to the opera, or I stuck out like a sore thumb as I was wearing jeans and everyone else was dressed up. Fantastic. And the accent tip we're looking today is how to pronounce the past tense, because we have three different types of pronunciation with the past tense. I normally put them in two because the other two are very, very similar in the way that they're pronounced, even though they're different, but they're very, very similar. So I want you to pause right now, and I want you to maybe record yourself of how you would say these words. And then once you press play, I will read them out and we will go through how we pronounce the past tense pronunciation. Okay. So how would you pronounce these words? Okay, so let's have a look at how we would pronounce these words. So I will go down to columns. So permitted, asked, extended, mentioned, owed, managed, participated, authorized, suggested, decreased, borrowed, and rejected. Okay, so why are some pronounced some way and the others are pronounced the other way? Well, let's have a look. So when a verb ends in TED or DED, the two slight differences I mentioned before, you have to pronounce the last syllable. And if it doesn't end in TED or DED, then we have to stress the verb. So, for example, asked, it's not asked. A lot of people say asked or authorized, and that is the incorrect way to pronounce these words because they don't end in TED or DED. So with the first column, you need to pronounce them and stress them to the last syllable. So it would be asked, authorized, decreased, and mentioned. And in the second column, because they end in TED and DED, we have to pronounce the last syllable. So it would be participated, permitted, extended, and suggested. Okay, so asked, participated, authorized, permitted, decreased, extended, mentioned, suggested. Okay, so let's practice and let's see if you've understood the two types or the three types of pronunciation. So let's go. How would you pronounce this word here? And it's not convinced. So the correct pronunciation is convinced. Okay, the next one. How would we pronounce this word? And it's not owed. And the correct pronunciation is owed. Next one. How would we pronounce this word? And the correct answer is suggested. Let's go to the next one. How do we pronounce this word? And this would be decided. How do we pronounce this one? The correct answer is borrowed. And the next one? Invested. This one? Fixed. Next one? Added. Bueno, espero que esto ha sido útil y nos veremos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.